Another week, another memo. Maybe. Members of the House Intelligence Committee voted unanimously Monday evening to release a 10-page rebuttal to the so-called Nunes memo. The president spoke at an event in Ohio on Monday and appeared to reference a memo that came out last week.
Oh, but did we catch them in the act or what? You know what I'm talking. Oh, did we catch them in the act? They are very embarrassed. They never thought they were going to get caught. We caught them. Hey, we caught them. Oh, it's so much fun. We're like the great sleuth.
Mr. Trump was seemingly referencing the Republican memo that focused in part on Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA warrants, that authorized the surveillance of former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor Carter Page. Reuters White House correspondent Jeff Mason joins me now from Washington. All right, so Jeff, President Trump tweeted about the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee before that vote Monday, calling Congressman Adam Schiff one of the biggest, quote, liars and leakers in Washington. Has the White House shown any interest in releasing the Democrats' memo?
Well, what the White House has said so far is that the process that led to the last memo, the Republican memo coming out, has to be repeated with this one. And that was advanced tonight by the fact that the committee did vote to release it. So it will now come to the White House, which hasn't previously seen it. They'll have a chance to look at it, review it, decide whether anything needs to be redacted or suggest that anything needs to be redacted, and then President Trump will have to make that decision. But it puts quite a bit of pressure on him, at least from Democrats and from some Republicans who are in favor of this being released after the fallout from the Republican one that was released late last week.
Well, yes. Is the White House concerned about any potential fallout from not releasing the Democrats' memo?
Well, it's a good question, and I haven't spoken to anyone about whether or not they're concerned about that fallout. I think at this point, what they have said so far is that they wanted to go through that same process. But, you know, the president made pretty clear before that process really started with the Republican memo that he was in favor of it seeing the light of day. The memo from the Democratic side is unlikely to be as positive for him, or at least as conclusive for him. And so it's possible that he will not support its release, and that would lead to certainly charges of playing politics with this issue and raise concerns again about whether or not things are being released that should be after the FBI initially objected to the release of the Republican version.
On another issue, Jeff, we saw the Dow plunge more than 1,000 points on Monday. How has the White House responded to that, since the president often touts the market's success?
He does indeed. In fact, the president has made the success of the stock market over the last year sort of a measurement of his own success. He did not speak about it today during his trip to Cincinnati, where he was touting tax reform and the tax overhaul. But the White House did come out with a statement after he got back to D.C. in which it said the president was focused on the fundamentals of the U.S. economy, which are extraordinarily strong.
Well, Thursday is the next government funding deadline, and the deadline for Congress to come up with a solution for DACA, that's the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, is March 5th. On Monday, Republican Senator John McCain and Democratic Senator Chris Coons unveiled a bipartisan immigration bill that doesn't include border wall funding. The president tweeted against it. How much of a sticking point is the wall for the White House, even if a bill makes it to the president's desk with bipartisan support?
It's a huge sticking point, and that's because it was one of the core promises that President Trump made as a candidate in 2016. So he took some flack last year when he indicated that maybe funding for the wall did not need to be part of a DACA solution, and he's not going back to have that happen again. So I think it will be a huge sticking point. That said, I suspect in terms of this week's deadline that they will push this aside or push it down the road a little bit further, come up with some kind of an agreement to keep the government open, because neither party is anxious or eager to have another partial government shutdown happen again.
And how concerned truly is the White House about another potential shutdown later this week?
Well, you know, I think the last time it happened, I think they feel that they were vindicated and that the blame ended up being placed on the Democrats. Of course, it didn't last very long, but I think even the Democrats are also concerned that that sort of blame would get put on them again. So certainly both sides are, I think it's fair to say, are concerned that it could happen again, but I also sense that there's more confidence that they'll find a way to avoid it this time because of how the fallout happened the last time, most recently.
All right, Jeff Mason in Washington for us. Jeff, thanks very much.
My pleasure.